We're going to discuss the Californian case between the state and the church. The Supreme Court sided with the California church. The church stated that California's COVID-19 restrictions on indoor services violated its religious liberty rights. This case was recently released this Thursday. This is an example of the principle of wisdom as discussed in Lao Tzu in Unit 3. This is also an example of the recognition discussed in Unit 3 because both parties are recognizing COVID-19 as an issue. This case has caused a divide between state and local officials because of the different opinions on the situation. This has caused a divide in Supreme Court justices as well. The Supreme Court case resulted in a 5-4 order in favor of the church. Andrew Cuomo's coronavirus related restrictions, arguing they treated religious organizations more harshly than secular business in violation of the First Amendment. Some of the justices accused the government of imposing, end quote, draconian and unconscionable prohibitions on the citizens of California. This example of a lack of humility on the church's part. The state is using extreme adjectives to get their point across to the state. The strong and extreme adjectives being used by the state may have caused the Supreme Court to rule in the state's favor. This is the example of simplicity as discussed in the Unit 3 book, Lao Tzu. Because with all the struggles and complications about the Supreme Court's decision, the decision will still be final and simple. The people of the church provide lectures of people from the opposing party at large parties wearing no mask. This is a huge game changer for the case. This showed hypocrisy on the other side. The church argued that they were being more restricted than retail stores. Hypocrisy is also an example of lacking humility as discussed in Unit 3. End quote, the disparate treatment of religion as compared to similar non-religious congregate gatherings unquestionably and substantially burden the church's exercise of religion and violates the First Amendment, the church's lawyers said according to CNN. There was also little humility in the courtroom. How humility is described in the government of California argued that the restrictions also applied to museums, movie theaters, and restaurants. This countered the arguments of the church. This is an example of non-contention as discussed in Unit 3. This is an example of non-contention because no matter the decision of the court, one side will have negative side effects. The state did not like that the church exposed their laws as being over-restrictive. The state responded by exposing more restrictions. They have to justify that not specifically the churches are restricted. The state acknowledged the restrictions they have put on the people of California. This is an example of humility as discussed in Unit 3. End quote, we recognize that the current restrictions interfere with the plaintiff's legitimate interest in participating in indoor worship services, and the state is committed to relaxing those restrictions as soon as public health circumstances allow, as it has in the recent past, the state lawyer said. According to CNN, the state plans to continue this curfew and other COVID restrictions that affect the churches. The state's justification for these restrictions on the church and the people of California is the existence of COVID-19. On Thursday, the Supreme Court officially sided with the church on the case. The Supreme Court disagreed with the ban on indoor religious services. They agreed with the church that those restrictions went against the laws of the U.S. Constitution. They described it as discrimination according to Reuters.com. This is another example of non-contention as I discussed earlier.